Hello and welcome back! This is the reading of Craniopagus Chapter 5. Finding the showers was easy enough. Rosie knew exactly where they were and was clearly keen to send them as far away from her as she could get them. Jonny ignored the looks they got. He walked with far more confidence than John ever could, especially when he was covered in blood. Eventually, they made their way to a dingy little locker room connected to a communal shower. The walls and floor were all tile, an ugly shade of yellow that was clearly of age and not design. There were 4 rows of lockers, all painted a dark gunmetal gray, though the paint looked as it seen better days, and was barely holding on. A dozen shower heads lined the walls, and there were cobwebs in basically every corner, though no spiders were in sight. He could only guess why the Institute would even have a communal shower, and digging in his head, John didn't seem to know either. That was fine, he supposed. It wasn't like knowing would help anyways. Instead, he dug through the lockers. People tend to forget things at times, and they were just fortunate enough that a few someones had forgotten their various shower supplies. They came away with a bounty of old shampoos and body washes, and a few dried-out bars of soap. Some were old enough that they simply weren't usable, but few were newer, evidence that someone must still use the showers at times. Digging through one last locker, he almost gasped. They found a bottle of lotion, newer than most of the other objects they had found so far, and their gut tightened at the sight. It was almost like a muscle spasm. Their arm threw the offending object away without either of them meaning to do it. It practically exploded against the far wall of the locker and made quite a mess. Jonny paused once the act was done. He didn't know if that had been him or John. It was something that perhaps he would have done, but he hadn't really thought about it before the lotion had gone flying. He decided not to think about it too hard, and John, mercifully, didn't comment about the action either. Perhaps he was wondering the same thing. Who had been responsible for that outburst, but was too awkward to ask. Instead, they went back to what they had collected. It wasn't much, and it wasn't the best, but at least it would help wash away the blood. Let's get this over with. Jonny began to undress, though had paused halfway through. Are you seriously getting embarrassed right now? Well, excuse me, John huffed. Not a lot of people tend to see me naked. It's my body, he reminded him. No, it's our body. Would you please make up your mind? Jonny demanded as he finished getting undressed. A few hours ago you were fine with me finding Wrath and having her cut you out of me, and now it's our body? I'm starting to think you don't know what you want. After your display back in the archive, John scoffed, I have to question if you even value your own life, let alone anyone else's, so no. I think that maybe I might be tempted to fight for my life because, quite frankly, I don't know if you should be given full control. Hey, fuck you, he growled back at him. I'm being pretty fucking gracious to you considering that you're the parasite here, not me. He turned the shower on as they argued, and indeed the water pressure was fairly abysmal. It was also cold, and it was taking its sweet time to warm itself up. Fuck, this sucks, he gripes. Even our shit dorm showers in uni were better than this. My shit dorm showers, John corrected, his tone sounding a blend of bitter and hurt. I highly doubt that you have any kind of formal education whatsoever. Jonny scowled at that before pausing and taking a deep breath. He thought back to Brian, back when he had tried to teach Jonny ways to control it and express his anger productively. At the time, he hadn't been any kind of grateful for the guidance and had outright shot the brass bastard several times over his trouble, but now he was reevaluating things. That wasn't a great sign for his own mental state, but perhaps he could at least use the moment of weakness to make nice with John. They were stuck together, they should at least try and get along. Look, you're upset. I get and appreciate that. I shouldn't have called you a parasite. He started as gently as he could. But I'll have you know that I am, in fact, highly educated on far more than my fair share of topics. Definitely more than you. Okay, so maybe he was being a little petty. Sue him. But to be fair, John was the ass first this time around. John humped at that. Oh, really? Surprisingly, he sounded almost interested. Good. It was a start, and bridges had been built with less. Not necessarily by Jonny, but still. I've been alive for hundreds of years, he explains as he steps under the water that was finally warming up. It may surprise you to learn, but I do sometimes become interested in learning about new worlds and the stories they hold. Did any of those stories teach you that it was wrong to beat the hell out of a coworker? Jonny hummed with fake thoughtfulness at the question before shrugging. Nope. John gave a frustrated grunt but said no more. There was long enough quiet between them that Jonny decided that they must be done talking. Instead, he focused on actually showering. He went to work aggressively scrubbing and clawing at their skin, trying to scrape away a month's worth of lotion and general filth, on top of the blood that didn't seem to want to come off. They made progress, but it was long and slow going. But eventually, John piped up again. Something is wrong with Bazira. Yeah, you noticed that too? Jonny nodded along while trying his very best to get a knot out of their hair. Their hair had always been long and thick, and John always needed special products to treat it. The whole shower was going to be an uphill battle, and Jonny was not looking forward to it. He yanked at the knot a little too hard and refocused on John. That's 'cause they're not Bazir at all. Yes, exactly! John seemed to almost beam at the realization that Jonny saw it his way as well. She's clearly someone else, and I suspect that she may have been replaced by a servant of the stranger, just like Sasha. What? Don't be stupid, Jonny scoffed. They aren't not them, they're Ashes. No, think about... Ashes? Who exactly is Ashes? Ashes O'Reilly, quartermaster for the Starship Aurora. Jonny answered back, rather proudly. I suspect they've been watching us the whole time, probably just for the fun of it. By now they can definitely tell that something's wrong with us and that I'm back. But then, what does that mean for Bazira? Was she never a real person or just a stolen identity? John sounded much more upset than Jonny thought he'd be by the revelation that the woman he might have been a fake all along. But honestly, he hadn't thought that John would care so much if she was just a forged identity, but his hurt sounded surprisingly genuine. And then, what about Daisy? Is she part of your crew too, or just someone they used to make a more convincing cover story? Jonny could only sigh. Honestly, I don't know anything about Bazira before you met her. Though, if we do take on an alter ego, it's typically created rather than stolen, unless it's more convenient or fun to steal it. As for Daisy, she isn't anyone from the crew. But those two, they always seemed close. I always figured, well, you know. No doubt. Probably a part of Ash's game. He agreed and reluctantly felt bad how unsurprising something like that would be for Ashes. Ashes can sometimes be messy bitch, let's say. John gave a scoff, which seemed to be the only thing keeping him from laughing at the comment. Is that right? Do tell. Jonny couldn't help but be compelled to continue. You know how it is. Come to a new system, break a few hearts, manipulate a few factions, topple a government here or there. We burn down a planet if it feels right. The only people that can really keep a proper relationship with are the other mechanisms. Well, sometimes. We can all kind of be on and off, you know? No? John sounded baffled by the very suggestion, and likely also confused by the statement about burning down entire planets. Best not to get into that for the time being. Look, there are very long gaps of time in space travel, sometimes even years, that can get lonely for even hardened space criminals. So sometimes we shag, and sometimes we hang out, and sometimes, if we're truly deprived, we date. He gave a somewhat disgusted sound, but John could tell it was forced. Revolting, truly. John laughed then, a genuine laugh, not forced or fake. Is that why our heart was racing while you were fawning over Martin? Okay, one, I don't even have a heart, so jot that down. He snapped back at him, perhaps a bit too aggressive. Two, it's not my fault your dumb little feelings are mixed up with mine. It's overflow coming from you and nothing else. Oh, please. John forced a scoff, but there was still a kind of fondness in his tone. If I had any control over my eyes right now, they'd be rolling so hard that would knock us out in the process. You fuck off, Sims, he snapped, throwing his hands up in frustration. It's not my fault your emotions have ruined me. I can't be having some fucking office romance. He attempted to just go back to showering, but John was persistent. You know, you're allowed to like him, right? I know what I said before, but we do share a body after all, and it's not like I own him or anything, and well, he is quite easy to like. John chuckled both at his own fondness for Martin and how upset Johnny seemed to be getting. Besides, if you really actually want me to ask him out like you said, we'll have to tell him about this anyways. Tell all of them, really. Johnny gave almost an offended sound. I know that. I wouldn't let you get into some kind of relationship with anyone while I was in your head. Not if they didn't know about me. That's just fucked up. Well, yes, I suppose it would be, he agreed. Though I wouldn't have expected you to have such strong feelings on the matter. Johnny growled back at him, throwing the soap he was using away better to focus on him. Look, I know that you don't think much of me, but I have rules. Personal rules. Every crime is fair game. Murder, theft, tax evasion, driving without a license. Hell, I'll even bet on an octo-kitten fight here and there. Octo-kitten? He ignored him and carried on. Any crime unless it's sexual, and that ain't right, you get me? That seemed to stun John into silence. So if I get involved with someone, whether that is taking them to bed or even just some sloppy makeout in a dive bar somewhere, it's not gonna be under false pretense. And if I didn't insist on Martin knowing, I would just be a creep. And if you're going to be a part of me, you're following those same rules. I didn't mean to make it sound like I thought you were some kind of predator or anything like that, John insisted. I wouldn't have expected a murderous pirate to have such a respectable code. John sounded like he really sincerely respected him for it. And, I mean, of course, I wouldn't dream of doing anything of the sorts, not to Martin or anyone else. Good, was all he said back to him. An uncomfortable silence sat between them. Johnny didn't often have to have those kinds of talks with people, but the few times he had to, they were always awkward and typically with someone he could just shoot and walk away from. But he couldn't exactly shoot John, and certainly couldn't walk away from him. He just had to hope that the awkward silence between them would last until the shower was done and over with. But, as ever, John was never quiet for long. What did you mean about your heart? He gave a long groan in response. Do you ever shut up, Sims? You said you didn't have a heart. You seriously can't expect me not to ask questions about something like that. So, was that a metaphor, or... No. He sighed and then gestured to his chest. My heart... Johnny said it quietly, almost absently, and that was almost more worrying than if he had shouted it. When he didn't elaborate further, John spoke up again. What's wrong? I don't feel anything. Yeah, no, we're not hurt or anything, he explained, but he sounded confused in his own right. But it's missing. Missing? He was confused now, too. I don't understand. You said before you didn't have a heart, but now you say it's missing. And how can you even tell? There's not even a scar there to indicate it's been removed. Johnny ignored him, instead putting his hand over where his heart should be. How had he forgotten about his heart, his mechanism, the thing that literally made him immortal? It wasn't like the thing could be just removed. It had to be there, right? How else was he healing so fast that his nose was already healed? It had to be a trick. He pushed and probed and there it was. Hidden somehow, but certainly there. He groped over the thing a bit more, looking for something that didn't belong, before he eventually found what he was looking for. It looked vaguely like a mole, which was almost certainly the intention. He pulled, and it put up a surprising amount of resistance, but with enough force it came off with only a bit of pain. It was small and round, and made of a brown, flexible rubber on top that appeared to be a type of synthetic skin. On the bottom was 8 little metal prongs that were meant to firmly root the thing in place. Johnny had never seen the design before, but he could tell what it was with relative ease, a cloaking device. And with it gone, embedded to the left side of his chest, there was his heart, right where it belonged, brass and mechanical and familiar. That's it? Your heart? Our heart, he corrected, ever contrarian it seems. But, yeah. And what exactly is that? He didn't need to elaborate for Johnny to know what he meant. It's quite clever, actually. He inspected the thing, rolling and pinching it between his fingers until it was crushed beyond repair, and then he flicked it away, using such a tiny cloaking device, small enough that it wouldn't be noticed for years, but just big enough to hide her heart. Gotta hand it to Raphaela, when she does evil science, she does it right. Right. John hesitated, but his curiosity got the better of him much too quickly, and he couldn't help but to pry further. So, why do we have a metal heart? It's kind of a long story, he stated, but then a smile grew on their face. It had been a while since he put on a proper show. One best told in song. Oh, Lord, John groaned. Do I have a choice? Sure. I can tell you the story, or I cannot. Those are your choices. He laughed a bit. He could tell John was joking to some extent, and he couldn't help but joke back. If he really didn't want him to sing, he could tell him about Dr. Carmilla and the mechanisms easily enough. But where was the fun in that? But John sighed in almost a playful kind of way. All right, Johnny, sing me a song. Johnny smiled a little wider and began. I suppose the best, most interesting place to begin would be my own story. You see, I come from a small world of New Texas, with red giants beat down, dyeing everything a deep crimson. And that is it for today. I've tried recording this end bit for like 5 minutes. I cannot speak properly right now, but that's fine. You know, it happens. But welcome to the era of where Johnny and John just sit in the shower for 3 chapters. Oh, jeez. You know, that's how writing goes most often. Sometimes they speed through action, and other times you sit in the shower for 3 days. Anyway, I hope everyone had a good day. It is certainly cold over here. The good old USA is practically freezing. Yeah, I'm currently sitting in my room hoping that the freaking snow apocalypse is done by tomorrow, because I want my art classes to be back, please. Anyways, I hope you all had a good time and good day listening to this. And as always, drink water. It's important.